But now yesterday in New York City, hundreds of leaders from around the world gathered at the headquarters of the United Nations in observance of the 64th session of the United Nations General Assembly. And our VOA correspondent, Margaret Besheer, is there at the headquarters. Hi, Margaret.
Good morning, Demiaki.
Hey, how are you? Well, you know, yesterday we all saw from the TV that it was a very, very busy day, a lot of very interesting speakers. But first, if you could just touch on President Obama, of course, his first attendance there as head of state.
Yes, it was his first time here at the UN General Assembly annual debate, and he gave a long speech outlining U.S. foreign policy. He said that he wanted a more multilateral approach. He wanted to engage the rest of the world. He said that the world's problems are so big, no one country can handle them alone. So he really invited the rest of the world to also step up and shoulder their share of the responsibilities and not expect the United States to do everything.
Now, Margaret, of course, also President Obama mentioned something about not making apologies for anything that he does in defense of my country, my people. Do you know the background to that?
Well, I think that was part of, saying he's shifting from the Bush administration policies that was maybe a little more unilateral, and he's shifting to more a multilateral approach, working with the rest of the world. I think that's what he meant by it.
And of course, his reception was very, very well received.
Oh yes, the General Assembly Hall was very full yesterday morning when President Obama spoke.
Now, Margaret, President Obama spoke for 40 minutes, which is longer than the regular time for heads of state, but the speaker following him, the Libyan President, Margaret Besheer, spoke for 1 hour and 30 minutes or more. Well, first of all,
1 hour and 36.
Just first of all, 1 hour 36. Well, first of all, just give us a sense of how he was received going up to the podium.
Well, I think people were very curious to hear what he was going to say. He's led Libya since 1969, but this is actually the first time that he came to the General Assembly annual debate. So people were curious to hear what he'd have to say, but I think they were a bit surprised. Perhaps he kind of rambled in his speech. He didn't have a prepared text. He had notebook pages torn out of a spiral notebook with handwritten notes on it, and he just kind of went from the subject of the Security Council and expanding the Security Council to include a seat for Africa, but then in the next breath calling it the Terror Council, of which Libya, by the way, is a member, and then in the next breath talking about the 1963 assassination of U.S. President John F. Kennedy. So it was really quite a speech.
Now, of course, we saw from a lot of the footage that was shown that, and a lot of the reports saying that a lot of people walked out during his speech, maybe in defiance of him or whatever it was. But would you say there was a lot of maybe critical points that he raised, at least for the African audience who were there?
Well, I would say for Africa there were 2 points that he did touch on that I think a lot of Africans can relate to. He did speak about Security Council reform, which is a big issue here. It's been for 20 years. It's one of those issues that sort of goes around and around without ever really going anywhere. But he talked about expanding the Security Council and saying Africa should have a permanent seat on it. And I think that's the AU position. He's the chairman of the AU. Certainly, after him, Ugandan President Museveni spoke, and he specifically singled out that point and agreed with it. Later in the day, President Sarkozy of France spoke, and he actually encouraged the idea of a permanent seat for Africa on the Security Council. So it's not an idea that people are against. It's certainly, a reasonable suggestion. And the other point he brought up was about compensation for countries that were colonies under the Europeans. And he asked, President Gaddafi asked for $7.77 trillion in compensation for those African countries.
Well,
that, I think, perhaps is less likely.
And I'm sure there's going to be a lot of reception to that. But very briefly, Margaret, before you go, what's in the lineup for today and tomorrow? Very briefly.
Well, another busy day today. President Obama is here again. He's actually right now, as I talk to you, in the Security Council, chairing a meeting of the Council. The United States is the president of the Council this month, and this is the first time that a U.S. president has chaired the Council, and he has with him all the other heads of state and government, except for one at the moment. When I was last upstairs, Colonel Gaddafi hadn't arrived yet, so I don't know if he's in there yet. But the other 13 heads of state and government, plus President Obama, that would be 14, and if Gaddafi comes, the full 15.
Margaret
so that's
Besheer.
On nuclear disarmament.
Thank you so much. Margaret Besheer, our VOA correspondent there at the UN headquarters. All right, we'll be talking to you tomorrow.